Okay, so today we are talking about the night train going from Paris to Berlin. So there are definitely some pros and cons when it comes to taking the train. You might see from the title, the price is quite steep. So that is definitely a consideration, but is it worth the money? That's something we can talk about and discuss as we go forward. So I'm going to start the video by giving you the details on the train, like what time it arrives and all those sort of little things. And then we're going to talk about the pros and cons. And then I'm going to tell you about something that genuinely scared me, and it could happen to you if you book this train. No joke, not an exaggeration, but really scary, had me very concerned. And apparently it's not an anomaly, it happens. And I'm also going to tell you about how I was able to save 25% on my train even after the trip, after I booked it. That was a shock, and I really got it. You might be able to get it too. We're going to talk about how you can be eligible to get some money back. So let's start with the details of the train. So the train leaves Paris just after 7 p.m. and it arrives in Berlin just after 8 a.m. So 13 hours on the train. There are different classes of ticket that you can buy. So you don't have to buy the same class that I bought, but I bought a second class ticket. It gives you an entire compartment. Up to 3 people can fit in it. So don't think that just because you bought kind of like this one compartment, you can fill it with as many people as you want. You can't. They come around and they check. Each person has to be accounted for and has to have a ticket. But for the class that I bought, it was buying the entire, cabin, compartment, room, whatever. It has bunk beds. So it starts out as seats, but then the conductor, she's not really the conductor. Is it on a flight? It's a flight attendant. So I'll just call her the train attendant. So the train attendant comes by, when it's time to go to bed. She turns the seats into bunk beds. You can have up to 3 bunk beds on the train. So that's sort of the details on how that works. So some cabins, I guess the first class, they actually have their own bathroom inside the room. Mine just had a sink, which was pretty handy, but on both sides of the train itself, there were bathrooms, one that even had a shower in it. So that was pretty cool. But let's get into the pros and cons of the train trip. Number one, I think the number one pro for me is that taking the train is super fun. I love taking trains. I always have a good time with my train travels. So it's a good time. Another thing that I really like about the train is that no one's checking your liquids, right? It's not like the plane where it's you're pulling out all your toothpaste and your hand cream to make sure you didn't pack anything that's too big. I like that when you take the train, it's just a lot more chill. It's a lot, more low key. You can just bring whatever you want and, no one's really hassling you. I kind of like that a lot. Another huge thing to remember when you're taking the train, these trains are actually in the cities that they're in, meaning it's from downtown Paris to downtown Berlin. Not like the planes, right? The plane that flies into Paris, it's called the Paris airport, but it is not in Paris, right? It's going to take you at least an hour to get from the airport into Paris, into the city, especially depending upon where you're going in the city and which airport you use. There's more than one. But, we did just spend 13 hours on the train, so are you really saving time? But, I like the fact that once you arrive in the city, you're really in the city. You're there. You're in Paris. You're in Berlin. So I think that's a real win for taking the train. Another thing is that I do find it soothing and relaxing when you're sleeping, the movement of the train, right? It's sort of like being rocked to sleep. We'll talk about sleeping on the train with other potential cons in a bit, but for now, let's focus on the positive. The movement is really nice for sleeping and things like that. Also, these trains do serve food. So that is a nice thing. That is definitely a positive. Now, so dinner is not included. You have to buy it if you want it. Breakfast is included with certain train ticket classes. So for my ticket, it was definitely included. So that was amazing. Amazing. It's convenient. I didn't actually want any of it. It was you can get breads or yogurts. And if you're vegan, you can request special vegan things in advance. But it's nice that it's available for free, right? So that you can have your morning breakfast on the train. As far as the dinner, my husband did get something he got a chili or something like that for dinner. I mean, it was a train chili, right? It wasn't great. He said he thinks the food is better on French trains, but maybe he's biased. He wants to be a French citizen, so maybe that's the French in him, that the French thing is actually a little better. I'm not sure. But so, okay, what else is a pro? I'm looking, I made a little list over here. Oh, I did also so people say it's good for the environment. That's a win, right? Like less emissions, we'll take that. So trains are less polluting. Also, our train, no, I was going to say conductor, our train attendant was very nice. So she was from, I forgot what country she was from, but she was from a country, I think in West Africa. She was really friendly. So that was nice. And it was fun to chat with her for a bit. So that goes on the side too of the pros. And, and we ran into her later when we were in Berlin. So that was also kind of a fun, positive thing for the trip. I think those are our positives. And now it's time to get into some of the cons, some of the things that weren't that great. Number one, let's start with first impressions. The little cabin area was definitely smaller than it looked in the photos. So it was smaller than I thought it was going to be. I don't know why when I booked the train ticket, it just looked like it was going to be a lot more spacious than it was, and it really wasn't. Another con, my train, you can see here, the floor was very dirty. So that just felt a little gross and grimy, and I feel like for the price, for the experience, I expect a higher standard of cleanliness when it comes to the floors and the cleaning. So that was not great. Another con, the bed was definitely hard, right? Quite hard. Hard enough that in the morning my hip felt kind of sore. Now, granted, I'm not a meaty person. I don't have a lot of cushion. So maybe part of that is on me. Maybe someone else would sleep on it and still be okay. But my hip was a little sore in the morning. Another con, which I do not fault the train for, but another con is that, because you are sleeping on this train, other people snore, right? So for me, the guy next to me was snoring. It was definitely kind of annoying. Luckily, I have an app on my phone that has white noise. So that helped a lot. But it's something to be aware of that if you are taking a night train, maybe you want an app. Oh, I did forget one thing. Let's go back just for a moment because this is kind of related to that. A pro is that they gave us a little goodie bag with some nice little amenities in it. One thing that was in the gift bag was earplugs. There was an eye mask. So those things definitely come in handy. Oh, they also provided a bottle of sparkling wine. So that was really nice. Okay. So those things are definitely in with the positives. Those are nice amenities that they provided. I can't use earplugs. My ears are actually really small. It's hard for me to fit stuff in there. But the app worked with the noise cancellation. So that was cool. Another con is that, so because you have your own sort of cabin, there are these keys that they give you to be able to enter the room. Ours was missing. When I talked to our train attendant, she said that she thought maybe the last person accidentally took it with them. I saw that everyone else in our compartment, in our train cabin, whatever, everyone else had one on their door, but ours didn't. So that was really annoying because it was if I went to the bathroom at midnight, I have to knock on the door or something to wake my husband up. Or what I really did was I left the door kind of slightly open, but because you're on a train that's moving, the door would then sometimes fly around a bit violently and it could slam, which would disturb everybody, which is really not a win. So that was just kind of a weird little random thing. And then the last con I'm going to get to is that it was expensive. Okay. It was expensive. I mean, 500 euros is really a lot for a train. Let me look again. Hold on. Because I want to remember how far in advance I booked this ticket. Okay. So I just double checked. So I booked my ticket 3 weeks before the train left. I mean, that's not super last minute. So the prices do get higher the closer you get to the departure. But I mean, sometimes it's hard to know way in advance when you're going to want tickets. So the point is that if you are thinking about taking this train, you want to book far in advance. But the refund things are not usually, they're not always super flexible, right? So of course, as with a lot of air travel now, if you want to get a refund, you're going to have to pay for a much higher class of ticket. But The moral of the story is try to book as far in advance as you can. I booked 3 weeks in advance and it was still $500. So definitely a lot more expensive than the plane. As a reference, my plane ticket was less than half for 2 people. So for 2 people, we traveled for 500 euros, and it was definitely less than that, less than half of that for the flights back. So something to be aware of. Now let's talk about what happened that genuinely scared me to death, nearly to death. So we were scheduled to leave on whatever day of the week it was. So we were scheduled to leave that day to go from Paris to Berlin. About 5 hours before the train was scheduled to leave, I got an email that said, your train has been canceled. Please call us about rebooking. Now I'm panicked because I got a message that says my train has been canceled. And like, I'm trying to figure out, we already have accommodation booked. We have our return flight booked. Like, what am I going to do? Like, we tried calling. The first person that we spoke to didn't speak any English, right? It is an Austrian, I think, company. So they speak German. So we're like panicking, like, oh my God, like, how are we, are we going to lose out on our reservations for the accommodation? Like, what's going on with this train? Like, how did they cancel it the same day? Like, this is insane. So like, there's literal pandemonium going on in my household as we try to figure out like how to troubleshoot this train. Finally, we're able to get someone on the phone who speaks English, and the train was not canceled. They simply changed the train number, but in changing the train number, they sent out an email to people telling people that it was canceled. And by the way, they told us that this happens kind of regularly. So you should know this because like, to get a message hours before you're leaving that your that your trip has been canceled is terrifying. I was really worried about that. But there was a silver lining because here's how I ended up saving money. So because I was worried that because I received notification that the train had been canceled, I'm like looking on the terms and conditions of the ticket, trying to find out if I have to book a last minute flight, like, will they accommodate me? Can I get any sort of money back other than the money I paid? But like, is there any sort of fee, penalty or something, right? So I'm looking through all the fine print and I find out that there is no penalty. They don't have to give you anything if your flight is canceled. And I'm like, if your train is canceled, they don't have to give you anything. But I noticed if your train is delayed, then you can get money back. So I'm like, well, that's actually interesting. So if you're just delayed, you can get money back. But if you're canceled, you get nothing. That's sort of interesting, right? But that sort of seed was planted in my head. Fast forward to our train. This is about train travel. Fast forward to our train. Oh, we were late coming in. And by the way, we were close, but at like the 55-minute mark. Now you have to be at least an hour late to start getting money back. And then there are tiers where you can get more money. But if it's 1 hour late, you can get 25%. I think if you bump up into 2 hours, you can get 50% back. So I'm like looking at my cell phone. I'm looking at the clock. I'm looking at the arrival time. Long story short, our train arrived more than an hour late and we absolutely received 25% of our ticket price back. Now, you won't receive that automatically. Just because your train is late, if you don't know, they will not tell you, right? Like if you don't know that you're supposed to get some money back, there's no announcement that will be made. They'll make an announcement apologizing for the delay, but not telling you that you can get some money back. So that's why I'm here. I'm here to let you know that if your train is delayed by an hour or more, you can get some money back. But you have to apply for it. But it's an easy process. You just go online, you go through their help form, you talk about how your train was delayed, blah, 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 blah. You put in all your information, money credited back to the account. It works. I did it, and it was amazing. So let's think about this in general, the pros and cons of this trip. All in all, I would take the train again if I could somehow book much earlier and get a lower price. I do like train travel. I do think it's fun. I do enjoy all the things that come with it. I was bummed about the level of cleanliness with the floor. I didn't like, necessarily all of those little things, but I still had a really good time. So I think, if it seems like it fits your budget, if it fits your temperament and your needs, it's a fun thing to do. And if you've ever done it, tell me how you enjoyed the train or if you'd like to check it out yourself. So that's it for now. And I'll see you in the next one.